I never imagined a single text could change my entire life. But here I am, sitting in my truck in the driveway, engine off, phone in my hand, staring at a message that just won't stop bouncing around in my head. Hey, saw you were in town. Coffee? It wasn't my phone that got that message. It was hers, my wife's. I only saw it because she asked me to grab her charger from her purse while she was upstairs in the shower. Her phone lit up when I reached in. Reflex, maybe. I glanced. The name that showed up? Nate W. That meant nothing to me at the time. Just some guy. Could have been someone from work. Could have been a cousin I never met. Could have been a mistake. But the tone, too casual, too confident, put something cold in my gut. So I scrolled. Just once. I swear to God I only scrolled once. And that's all it took. There were old messages, weeks old, buried deep. I didn't even know she had this many messages hidden under some work label. He said things like, "Still can't believe how easy it is to talk to you again," and "that night at the lake." I think about it more than I should. One reply from her just said, "Don't say that. You'll get me in trouble." Cold sweat smile. That emoji, that dumb little emoji felt like someone punched me right in the chest. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I didn't even know what to say. It wasn't proof, not really. Not yet, but I couldn't stop thinking about that name. Nate W. So I did what any guy who's starting to feel the floor drop out from under him might do. I searched her Facebook friends. And there he was, Nate Walters. Tall, tan, broad smile, looked like the kind of guy who still called his high school truck a classic. I clicked his profile and started scrolling. And I felt like I was looking at a ghost from her past. Then I remembered. Years ago, when we first got together, we were lying in bed after one of those deep, wine-fueled conversations, and I asked her, "Who was the first guy you ever really loved?" She got quiet, and she said, "There was a guy in high school. Nate, but it didn't end well. That was it, just a passing thing, no emotion, no warning, just some kid she used to know. I never thought of him again. Until now. Now, he's texting my wife about that night at the lake." I spent the next few days walking through my life like it didn't belong to me. Smiling at coworkers, nodding through small talk, pretending everything was fine when inside it felt like something was splintering. I'd look at her, my wife of 8 years, and suddenly I wasn't sure I knew her at all. She still laughed at my dumb jokes. Still kissed me on the cheek before bed. Still sent me, "Pick up milk?" texts like always. But something was different, and I was starting to wonder if maybe it wasn't new. Maybe I just never noticed. I didn't tell anyone, not my brother, not my best friend, not even my dad, who's always been the guy the first go to when the world starts spinning too fast. I told myself maybe it was nothing. Maybe they just met for coffee. Maybe it was harmless. But deep down, I didn't believe that. And that's when I made the decision I never thought I'd make in my entire life. I was going to follow her. Just once. I needed to know. And I think part of me already knew I wasn't going to like what I found. The decision to follow her. I still hate that I made it. I never wanted to be that guy. The guy who checks his wife's phone, who hides in his own damn neighborhood like a burglar just to see what his wife is really doing. But once the seed of doubt gets planted, it doesn't shrink. It grows. It spreads. It rots everything. It started with a Tuesday. She told me she was going out to dinner with a friend from work. A woman I'd met once or twice. I nodded, said, "Have fun," and kissed her goodbye like everything was normal. But it wasn't, because I had already gone to her phone carrier's website the night before and reactivated an old account, a family tracking app we'd used years ago when we both traveled a lot. I don't even think she remembered it was still installed on her phone. I never deleted mine either. I just never had a reason to use it until now. So that night, I watched the little blue dot on my phone. Her dot. She left the house around 6:40. Right on schedule. Except her friend's address, the one she told me she was going to, was nowhere near where her phone ended up. Instead, she drove west. 35 minutes out of town. To a place I didn't recognize. And she stayed there. I sat in my truck in the grocery store parking lot, just watching that little blue dot sit still for over an hour. 2 hours. No movement, no check-in, no running late text. At around 9:15, the dot started moving again. Back toward home. She walked through the front door a little after 10. Smelled like mint and lavender. Her hair was still perfectly curled, but she kicked off her heels like she was tired. "Sorry," she said, setting her purse down on the counter. Dinner ran long. You know how Claire gets when she starts venting about work. I smiled. "I know," I said. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just a long night." I looked at her and nodded. She walked upstairs, humming some old song under her breath, like she'd just come back from any other night. But I saw the address. I'd already written it down. I spent the rest of the night on Google Maps, trying to figure out where she'd been. The house belonged to someone named E. Walters. It didn't take much digging to guess who that might be. Nate's parents. Or maybe Nate himself. I didn't sleep that night. I just laid in bed staring at the ceiling while she slept inches away from me, like there wasn't a crater opening up under our life. The next morning, I got up early and drove back out to that neighborhood. I wasn't proud of it. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. The house was quiet, clean yard, big oak tree out front. There was a car in the driveway. Not hers, his. I recognized it from Facebook. A beat-up silver Tacoma with a lift kit. Same custom bumper. Same black and white sticker in the back window. Lakeview baseball alumni. It clicked immediately. That was where coffee had happened. That was where she had happened. I sat across the street for 20 minutes before I left. I couldn't bring myself to knock. I didn't want to be the crazy guy banging on someone's door. And I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I needed more. And the worst part? I wasn't just looking for proof anymore. I was looking for a reason. A reason why my wife, the woman I've built a life with, would go back to someone from 15 years ago and risk blowing up everything we've built. It wasn't just about cheating. It was about history. About something I never really understood. Something I wasn't part of. That night, I searched our attic. I don't even know what I was hoping to find. But I did find something. A shoebox. Tucked under an old blanket. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. Inside were letters. Actual, handwritten letters. All of them from him. Nate. Dated back to when they were teenagers. And taped to the lid was a photo of her. Smiling. In his arms. And on the back, in faint ink, were 4 words that burned into my brain. My first, my always. I couldn't stop staring at that photo. It looked like it had been taken during some summer trip. Maybe high school, maybe college. She had a red bandana tied around her hair. A smile so wide you could see every tooth. And that kind of glow you don't fake. She looked happy, young, carefree in a way I'd never seen her, not even when we first started dating. But it wasn't just the picture that got me. It was those 4 words on the back. My first, my always. I kept whispering it to myself, like I was trying to change how it sounded. Maybe it was some inside joke. Maybe it didn't mean what I thought it did. But deep down, I knew it did. And the letters. God, the letters. They weren't just teenage fluff. They were intense. Emotional, raw, the kind of words you write when you think you'll never love anyone else. Some were angry, some sounded desperate, but all of them had one thing in common: he never really let go of her. I sat on the attic floor, knees tucked up, shoebox in my lap, wondering how I could have been with someone for nearly a decade and never once heard her speak about this guy like he meant anything. He was just some guy the first dated in high school. Just a name, just a chapter. Not a whole damn book. She told me once she didn't believe in soulmates. She said people grow in and out of love all the time. That commitment was a choice, not magic. That real relationships were about showing up, not fairy tales. I believed her. I built my life around that idea. I showed up. I kept showing up, even on the hard days. Especially on the hard days. But now I'm wondering if maybe I was just the one she chose, after the one she wanted slipped through her fingers. And now he was back. It started to explain the little things. The way she'd zone out more often lately. The playlist full of old 2000s love songs she kept replaying on drives. Her sudden interest in evening walks by herself, which I hadn't questioned because I figured she just needed space. And yeah, our marriage wasn't perfect. We had bills, routines, stress. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Or at least I thought it was. I didn't sleep again that night. I laid next to her like I was made of glass, fragile, transparent, waiting to crack. In the morning, she asked me if something was wrong. I lied. I told her I was just tired from work. She nodded, kissed me on the cheek, and went off to teach her. Morning class like nothing was wrong. Like everything wasn't. Later that day, I did something I wasn't proud of. I called in sick to work, parked a few blocks from that same house, the one she visited on Tuesday, and waited. I told myself I just wanted to confirm she wasn't going back. But that was a lie too. I wanted to catch her. But she never showed. Not that day. Not the next. But that Saturday, she told me she was heading to the farmer's market with a few coworkers. The dot on the tracker told a different story. It led me right back to that house. This time, I didn't wait in my truck. I walked up the street and stood behind a row of trees, just far enough to see the front porch. Around noon, they came out. Her and Nate. He had his hand on the small of her back. She didn't pull away. She laughed at something he said and leaned her head into his shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like it was home. And right there, behind those trees, I realized something that hit me harder than all the lies. She didn't look like someone sneaking around behind her husband's back. She looked like a woman who thought she was falling in love again. I didn't go home right away after seeing them. I couldn't. I drove until I ran out of road, just past the edge of town, where the subdivisions fade into farmland and gas stations start doubling as diners. I parked in an empty lot next to an old baseball field and just sat there, staring at the dusty chain link fence. All I could think was I ever enough for her? Not, did I do enough? Not, did I love her well enough? No, I mean the raw, cut open truth of it. Was I ever what she really wanted? Because when I saw her with him, there was something in her body language I hadn't seen in years. Ease. Like she didn't have to think or try or pretend. Like she was 17 again and everything felt possible. And maybe that's what he was to her, a time machine. A way to rewrite the story she never got to finish. But where does that leave me? I'm the one who painted the nursery when we lost our first pregnancy. I'm the one who held her hand through her mother's funeral. I'm the one who woke up early to start the coffee just so she'd hear it brewing when she got out of bed. I built a life with her. A real one. Not a fantasy. Not a reunion at some ex-boyfriend's house with 20-year-old letters in a shoebox. Me. And yet, here I was, sitting in a truck I paid for, wearing a jacket she bought me last Christmas, feeling like an afterthought in my own marriage. I finally drove home around sunset. She was already back, kitchen light on, Bluetooth speaker playing something soft. Smelled like rosemary and garlic. She was cooking. For me, that made it worse. She looked up from the stove and smiled. You okay? You look tired. I nodded. Yeah, just a long day. I couldn't bring myself to ask, how was the farmer's market? She started talking about squash prices, about how she ran into an old colleague, about how she was thinking of trying a new risotto recipe. I stared at her the entire time, trying to see through her, to find where the lie lived in her face. I didn't find it. She was good, too good. That night, I waited until she fell asleep and went downstairs. I pulled out the letters again. I read them slower this time, letting the words really sink in. Some of them were poetic, but others were just honest. I think you ruined me for other women. You were the only one who made me believe in something bigger than myself. I wake up sometimes thinking you're still beside me. I ran my fingers over her handwriting, because some of the envelopes had responses too. Fewer, but they were there. She wrote him back, and then I found one that was dated a few months before we even met. In it, she said, I don't know what's wrong with us, Nate. I think about you all the time, but I also know we're not good for each other. I want to love someone who makes me feel safe. I want something that lasts. That line stayed with me all night. I want something that lasts. Maybe that was me, the thing that lasts, the safe choice, the dependable one, but not the one she ached for. Not the one she writes letters to in secret. Not the one who makes her laugh like that on a stranger's front porch. And that's when it hit me. Maybe I was never her, always. Maybe I was just the life she settled into while she waited for the one that got away to come knocking again. And now he had. There's a moment, when you start digging into something you're not supposed to see, where you realize, there's no going back. I hit that moment 2 days after seeing her on that porch with Nate. She was in the shower. Her phone was on the bathroom counter. I walked by, stopped, backed up. It was unlocked. The moment stretched out in front of me like a wire stretched tight between two buildings, dangerous, thin, and impossible to cross without changing everything. But I crossed it. I opened her messages. I didn't find a thread labeled Nate. She was smarter than that. But I did find a contact under just a single letter. J. When I opened it, the first message I saw was from the previous night. Still thinking about that slow dance in the kitchen. And her reply. It was stupid, but perfect. That was it. I didn't need anything else. I backed out, locked her phone again, and sat on the edge of our bed until the water turned off. I heard her humming, same as always. Like her world hadn't shifted. Like mine hadn't cracked wide open. That was the night I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Confrontation gives people a chance to lie, to spin, to blame, and I didn't want her words anymore. I wanted facts. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I called Evan, my cousin. He's one of those guys who always knows a guy. Not in a shady way, just resourceful. He once helped my friend find his stolen motorcycle in under 48 hours. I figured, if anyone could help me figure out what was really going on, it was him. I'm not asking you to follow her, I said on the phone. I just want to know if this thing with Nate, if it's still going on. He didn't ask why. He just said, give me a couple days. While he worked on his end, I kept playing my part. The husband, we still had dinner together. Still watched our shows. She still laid her head on my chest some nights and fell asleep there like nothing was wrong. And it messed with my head more than I can explain. Because I loved her, I still do, and it's a different kind of heartbreak when you realize the person you love most is lying well. Like, convincingly, seamlessly, without guilt. Like she's learned how to live in both worlds at once. One evening, we were sitting on the couch and she asked me, do you ever think about moving closer to the coast someday? Like retiring there? I looked at her, and I swear, for a second, I almost laughed. The way she said, we. Like we were still a we. Like there wasn't a version of her out there right now daydreaming about someone else while she's planning a beachfront future with me. I don't know, I said. Feels like a long way off. She nodded and leaned her head on my shoulder. Still, I liked the idea. That was the moment I realized how far this had gone. She wasn't just cheating. She was building two futures, one with me, and one with him, and waiting to see which one felt better. 2 days later, Evan called. His name's Nate Walters, right? Yeah, he's been seeing her for a while. Quietly, I checked his place. She's been there at least 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And yesterday? He didn't come home alone. I swallowed hard. You sure? I've got pictures. He texted them to me. I didn't even want to look. But I did. There she was, getting out of her car, looking down at her phone, walking up his porch steps like she'd done it 100 times. No hesitation, no fear, just like it was their home. That's when something in me went still. Not angry, not sad, just clear. She wasn't confused. She wasn't being tempted. She wasn't caught in a moment. She was choosing this, again and again. And the craziest part? She still came home to me. Still kissed me goodnight. Still asked me what I wanted from the store. Like nothing was burning. I've always believed the scariest part of betrayal isn't the explosion, it's the quiet before it. That long stretch where you know the truth, and they don't know you know. That's where I've been living. The funny thing is, once I knew, I mean really knew, it didn't make me want to scream or break things or confront her right away. It made me still, cold, almost, like something in me had finally clicked into place. I wasn't lost anymore. I was just done pretending. So I started planning. The first thing I did was get my own bank account. Quietly, moved my direct deposit from our shared account. Left a small amount in there to keep things looking normal. She didn't notice. She rarely looked at our finances unless something bounced. I made sure nothing did. Then I met with a lawyer. Her name was April. No nonsense. Wore dark glasses indoors and had a voice like she'd already heard every story 5 times before. I laid it out for her, everything. The messages. The tracker. The photos Evan got for me. The fact that there were no kids, no shared property. Just almost a decade of shared life. She listened carefully. When I was done, she asked just one question. Do you want to fight her? I paused. What do you mean? Do you want revenge, or do you want out clean? I sat with that for a second. I thought about the photo in the attic. About that porch. About her smiling into someone else's shoulder. No, I said, I just want clarity, closure. I want her to tell me the truth, even if it kills me to hear it. April nodded. Then we handle this with strategy, not anger. And we do it on your terms. So that's what we did. I started collecting everything. Texts, call logs, screenshots, GPS data, not to weaponize them, but to be ready for whatever story she'd try to sell when this finally came out. Meanwhile, at home, she was still her. She was still cooking dinner. Still texting me little heart emojis during the day. Still playing her role in the marriage like it hadn't already collapsed underneath her. But I noticed new things now. Like how she kept her phone screen tilted away just slightly more than she used to. Like how she was more affectionate, too affectionate. Almost like she could feel it slipping and was trying to glue it back together before I noticed. It would have worked, if I didn't already know. One night, we were watching a movie on the couch. She reached over and grabbed my hand. Held it like it meant something. "Do you ever think about how we met?" she asked. I looked at her. Yeah, sometimes. I remember thinking, you were the safest place I'd ever been. She meant it like a compliment. But it hit me like a blade. Because safe isn't always enough for some people. Safe can mean boring. Safe can mean second choice. Safe can mean, you won't break me, but you won't set me on fire either. I smiled anyway. I remember that too. That night, while she slept, I wrote her a letter. Not a dramatic one. No big monologue. Just truth. I told her I knew. I didn't lay out all the evidence. I didn't call her names. I didn't ask why, because at this point, I wasn't sure the answer would matter. I told her I loved her. That I would have done anything for her. That I still believe in the version of her I married, even if she doesn't live here anymore. And then I wrote one last line. If he's your first and you're always, then I was just your in-between. I sealed it in an envelope, wrote her name on the front, and tucked it in the drawer where she keeps her morning vitamins. Right next to the coffee mugs. Then I packed a small bag. Just enough for a few days. I left while it was still dark. Didn't slam the door. Didn't take anything I didn't need. Just walked out like I was going to work. And in a way, I was. I was going to work on letting go. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to expose someone. It's to quietly leave the cage they never realized they locked you in. It was 3 days before she called. I'd expected it to be sooner, honestly. Maybe an hour later. Maybe not at all. But 3 days? 3 days of silence. I was staying at a buddy's guest house on the edge of town. No one knew except him, and I kept it that way. I needed space. Not for drama. Just to think without hearing her voice echoing in the back of my head. When my phone finally lit up with her name, I just stared at it. 5, 6, 7 rings. Then I picked up. Her voice came quiet, shaky. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. "Please," she said, "I read your letter." Silence. "Is this, are you leaving me?" I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. She'd already left. She just hadn't moved out yet. "I'm not the one who left," I finally said. "You did. You just never packed." She didn't argue. Instead, she whispered, "I never meant for it to go this far." "Then why did you keep going?" Another long pause. I could hear her breathing, steady and slow like she was trying not to break. "It wasn't supposed to be anything," she said. "He reached out. I thought. I don't know what I thought. It felt like stepping into a time machine. I felt young again. I felt seen. So I didn't see you?" I asked. "For almost 10 years? You did. Of course you did." She sighed. "But he reminded me of who I used to be before I became someone's wife. Someone's routine." And there it was. Not an apology. Not a confession. Just a truth I didn't want, but needed to hear. "It was never about you," she added. "I swear, you've been everything I could have asked for. You are, a good man." I sat with that for a second. It hit harder than if she'd screamed at me or denied everything. Because if I was such a good man, why wasn't I enough? I asked her one final question. "Are you in love with him?" I didn't say his name. I didn't have to. She didn't answer right away. Then, "I don't know. Maybe, but it's not that simple." "No," I said, "it never is." I told her I wouldn't be coming home. That the lawyer would be in touch. That I wasn't angry anymore, I was just done. And I meant that. There was no dramatic goodbye. No yelling. No begging. Just two people sitting quietly on opposite ends of a broken bridge, finally acknowledging the gap between them. That night, I drove back to our house. Not to stay. just to gather the rest of my things. She wasn't there, but the letter I wrote was still sitting on the kitchen counter, open, unread looking, like she couldn't bring herself to throw it away or tuck it into a drawer. Next to it was a photo I'd never seen before. It was us, at the lake house, year 3 of our marriage. My arms around her, her head against my chest, both of us grinning like we'd never heard of betrayal or heartbreak or midlife nostalgia. She wrote something on the back in her handwriting. Just 5 words. You were never the in-between. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't take the photo with me. I left it there, beside the letter. Because I didn't need her to say it. I didn't need to be the always. I didn't even need to know who she'd end up choosing. What I needed was peace. And sometimes, peace doesn't come from answers. It comes from walking away before you lose yourself in someone else's story.